Well, I guess you can kind of shoehorn control into horror, but
Mm.
now we're going to go on to control, which is the new Remedy joint, their follow up
Mm.
to Quantum Break, which I enjoyed. I liked the combat in Quantum Break. I think it looked good as a game. The story with the TV show tie-in was, a little weird and not exactly my favorite aspect of that game, but that was one of the games that a few games that I went back and got all of the achievements for, um, and not because it was super awesome, but mostly because it was short. And like I looked at the achievements, it was like, oh, I can do this, and I enjoyed enough of it to keep going. And yeah, so this is, I think this takes a lot of elements from Quantum Break, like some of the combat and even some of the like effects and visual cues, and the effects around the powers that you have and stuff like that. A lot of people have been comparing it to Psyops as well, which is an old game where you had like telekinesis powers and stuff like that. And yeah, you have all these kinds of cool powers in this game. Um, like right now, I've got the ability to pick up objects and throw them, and I've got a shield you just gather up all this junk and you use it as a shield to protect yourself from um, uh, enemy fire and stuff like that. And I know
Mm.
later on you get some like levitation abilities, so I'm looking forward to that. Um, the powers feel really cool. Like um, the combat in general feels really good. You're kind of like thrown right into it. It's not like a cover shooter like Quantum Break was. You're out there. You're actively engaging with these enemies that are also running around and engaging with you. So you got to kind of mix up the shooting and the your powers. Um, and like what's really cool is you can point at specific objects to grab them toward you and then throw them at the enemy. But if you don't have something specifically targeted, it will kind of just pull some random thing out of the environment. So you're never like scrambling to find something to grab and throw, and it makes like the throw a very viable weapon. Whereas
Mm.
sometimes with these kinds of things, it can kind of end up being a hassle if there's nothing right in front of you to pick up and throw. Um, but you can do like specifically target things, and like you'll grab like if you grab like a fuel barrel or a big computer or something like that, that'll cause more damage. So you can be a little picky and choosy with it. Um, and the shooting's okay. It's kind of like um, yeah, we were talking about Remnant early on, and also Darksiders. It's kind of like the shooting in Darksiders, where I guess it's a little bit more effective than that, but it's kind of like there if you don't have anything that a special power you can use to throw stuff around. Early on, it's you're using it, you're shooting a lot more, but as you get the powers, you're using the powers a lot more. Um, yeah, so in terms of the gameplay, Lee, what are you thinking about it? Is it doing anything for you, or is the
Um,
gameplay not grabbing you?
I'm really into kind of things about this. I'm a massive, massive Remedy fan and a massive, massive Sam Lake fan. And
Mm-hmm.
this actually, I think, has elements of all three of their big franchises so far. There's the chunky strafe and shoot of Max Payne in there to some extent, without maybe the
Mm-hmm.
slow motion jumping, but
Yeah.
definitely kind of stick and move of it. There's the possessed enemy type element of kind of are they going to drop down or not of Alan Wake,
All
the
right. Yeah, I
possessed enemy
forgot.
type thing.
I got that ability too, where you can take over a hurt an enemy that's almost dead and convert them to your own team, basically.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I forgot about
And
that.
then there's the kind of X-Men with guns thing of Quantum Break.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I found it fun to play It is satisfying to play as a shooter, as a kind of, especially kind of the intuitiveness when you want it of the kind of the pick up and throw thing.
Yeah.
It's as precise or imprecise as you want it, and it all 95% of the time it works the way you want it to, and that's pretty cool. Actually playing through it, I find a real chore. I find it fatiguing.
Yeah, you were talking about, you said the environments were kind of wearing on you.
The best way I could describe this is it's like playing Quantum Break with the flu. If that makes any sense. Like ravaged by flu.
Okay.
It's like I'm going through it, and it's. I was trying to think. We was talking about it earlier. What it was about. Actually, keep going through the same bits of setting, and I couldn't explain exactly what it was about the setting. There was this kind of. It's called brutalist architecture from the 50s. It's very European, and it's stark, and it's kind of oppressive. You don't really want to go and work there, put it that way. And it's everywhere. The big grey slabs of wall, and you're going through it. And it just feels like the same thing, and it's kind of. It feels a little bit like you got the bends playing this game. If that makes sense. It feels like kind of you got ear pressure, and it feels really dense and in on you. It's like I find it a really dense game to play, and there's these weird filters that go over everything. That's kind of when you go into an area, sometimes it's all bathed in red, like there's a red filter over it. That's fine, but then you're walking along sometimes, and you will get like this weird red kind of filter thing go over your gameplay as you're walking, and it's like a live action clip of the antagonist in silhouette with a light behind him, and you can't really see where you're going. It's just thrust in your face. And every time you go into a new area, there's these massive fonts hitting you in the face wherever you. It's like a punch in the face. I think it's one of those things I think
and it's supposed to be.
But after the 50th time, a big font punches you in the face, and you've had it so much, it gets a bit. There's something about it that feels a bit suffocating to me to play it. It's the oppressive architecture of the oldest house and stuff like that I find a little bit. Do you not find it wearing on the eyes?
I definitely
on the eyes and the kind of senses.
At first, I could definitely see like. The concrete walls and everything like that gets old, and I was a little worried about that. Like the more I played, the more I'm like, oh man, is it just going to be these concrete walls after concrete walls? But there are definitely areas where it does open up a little bit architecturally, and the more you get into it, the more they kind of open it up and show you these kind of unique environments. I mean, I love the way that. So another thing they probably pulled from Quantum Break was, instead of actually having a live action TV show, they kind of set this game up almost like a TV show, which where we allude to with those big, like the font coming up on the screen and the big thud when you enter a new area. It's almost like you're starting a new episode of a TV show. They even show you like a preview of what's down in these new areas when you get the mission to go down into, like, you get the mission to go down into research, and it kind of pans through research, so you already see like almost like next time on control, and you see like what you're going to be seeing, and then you finally get down there and it's like research. And I think that stylistic touch is really effective, and it hasn't gotten old yet. I mean, that's kind of like how I'm approaching this, is like more of like a serial TV show or something like that. A serial drama is like really what it feels like. So this whole game takes place in this place called the Federal Bureau of Control, which is like a secret FBI that goes around and studies and collects these objects of power. The story and the lore here is intense. It is just dripping with like this entire world that they've created inside what's effectively our reality. But there's like this whole other it reminds me kind of like the way they explained Men in Black, where all of like there are aliens among us, but we don't know it. But this agency called the Men in Black, they know it, and their job is to keep it secret and study it and make sure everybody is safe from it. It's very much in that vein, where there's this building, like I said, the oldest house, is actually one of these objects of power, and it can transform. It can, it's like a living house almost. And the way that it's explained is that it's somehow connected to an alternate dimension, and there are these objects all over the world, and they manifest themselves in just different ways, like a telephone that can you can communicate with something on the other side of the dimension. Your gun in the game is one of these objects of power, and it transforms into different weapons. Like, it starts off as a pistol, but then it actually literally transforms into a shotgun, transforms into a sniper rifle, transforms into a machine gun, and has some sort of connection to who has the most power, essentially, in this old house, the oldest house. And like, this house itself, this building, exists in the middle of New York City, but only appears to certain people. Like, it's existed there for effectively forever, but it will only like be visible and make itself known to certain people. It's like, you really have to get in there and read some of these documents that they have and some of the videos and stuff to fully grasp exactly what's going on here. Because it's a lot, and it's kind of like, there isn't a whole lot that I can really compare it to in terms of like the way that it's setting up its story and stuff like that. Except for, like, Men in Black is a pretty easy comparison in terms of like its secrecy and how all of the stuff is going on right under our noses. But this is one of these few games where I've read every single document I've picked up. And it's not like, usually I would, complain about a game, that just strews documents and audio logs all over. Like, we can do better than that in 2019. But because every single piece of writing in this is so good, I'm like anxious to pick up the next document and see and fill in just a tiny little bit of lore of this world that Sam Lake and his writing team have created. And it's all like written cleverly and like with a little bit of like, there's Remedy always has had like a tongue-in-cheek kind of storytelling format where they know what they're telling is, the stories they're telling are kind of silly and stuff like that. And it's all here with that. Like, you pick up a piece of paper and like half of it's redacted and you're reading through and it's like, we found this thing in blank and it did blank, and we brought it back, and as soon as we got it back to the facility, it started blank, 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 and all this stuff. And it's like, even though you have all of these blanks, you can still put together like an idea of, what's going on here. And also with those blanks, you're kind of like filling in the blanks yourself and coming up with your own stories a little bit with each of these things, because there's tons of them. And right off the bat, the very first one you pick up, the very first document, just to kind of set the scene, it says like, these are all of the things that you can't bring into the facility, right? It's like right at the front desk, and it's like, you shouldn't bring in, weapons, outside food, blah, this, that, and then like a number 2 pencil, and all of these like weird specific, just bizarre things. And it's like, just to kind of set the scene on where like this is going. It's like, why can't I bring a number 2 pencil into this building?
Yeah. Why is it different to a 4B? Yeah. Sort of thing, yeah. Why is it different to a number 4 pencil? Yeah, sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
What's,
Like
what's so special about that
why
one?
is it a number 2 pencil? Yeah, and just stuff like that, and those kinds of little details are thrown in,
Mm.
and yeah, it's just
Also,
kind
think
of,
the live action sequences are also quite amusing with the scientist.
oh yeah, oh man, the
You know,
Dr. Darling, who
actually,
is,
Alan Wake.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
the character that played the voice actor and stuff that played Alan Wake. He's perfect. The way that he,
yeah,
and like you kind of, yeah, so you find these little live action things, which is a normal thing in Remedy games as well, where they have like a in world TV show and stuff like that. So you find
yeah.
these little things, and they're like, they're supposed to, they're played off as like the research team communicating with the rest of the organization and kind of being a little bit more personable and explaining what's going on. So they're presented as like a PSA kind of, Saturday morning, the more you know, kind of little bits. But the farther you get into this game, the more his little videos, he starts becoming more desperate and more broken and more like losing it. And so like even with those things, you're kind of like piecing together like the history of this place, because when you get there, shit's gone wrong. This isn't like you're walking in and it's like the FBI where everybody's working and going about their business. You kind of just walk into this place, no intro cutscene, no like nothing setting up anything. You walk in the front door and it's basically, for all intents and purposes, empty. And then as you go along, you start finding people and you start figuring out that something crazy, something real bad went wrong, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to spoil it because honestly, the story is probably the biggest thing that's going to pull you through. I mean, the gameplay is nice, and like I said, the telekinesis and the throwing stuff around and everything like that is really cool. But the story is like really what's pulling me through. Like, what is the next thing they're gonna throw at me? It reminded me right away, and I mentioned it in chat. It reminded me of Rapture from BioShock, like the way that you entered this place and it had already, the crisis had already occurred, and everything you pick up, every like audio log in that game you pick up and all the people you talk to slowly fill in what happened leading up to your arrival. And that's kind of like what this feels. It's like you come in, the crisis has happened, and the documents you're picking up, the audio logs, these live action videos, they're kind of painting the picture of everything that led up to what's going on right now. And it's a really interesting way to kind of make the place that the level that you're in, like almost like a character as well. Like the oldest house is a character in this game, just as much as any of the actual real characters. The NPCs and Jesse Faden, who you play as, is a character. Yeah, so that's I know, Lee, you were talking about it, you were kind of falling off of it because of the issues you were having with it, but this is one of my strongest games of the year so far.
Yeah, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's my issue. There's no question. It's a taste thing. The quality of the game is top notch. I won't ever say that, and I am having fun playing it. But I think the best way I can describe it is I find it doesn't have an oppressive tone, but it has an oppressive atmosphere and approach.
Yeah.
And it just smacks me in the face, and that's just a taste thing. It's honestly, I can see it's a very good game, but it's just having a bit of a disconnect with me personally. I would recommend it to other people, but I would probably say to them, I didn't like it, but I'd give it a go.
Oh no, yeah, definitely.
It's a
I can
very
definitely
strange
see
game for
how
me. Very strange
you can,
game for me.
you can bounce off of it because, like you said, it
Yeah.
is the way that it handles, the way that it just kind of throws you in for one thing can kind of can throw a wrench in anybody's enjoyment right from the start, because
Yeah.
you have to immediately buy into what's going on, and if you don't, you're not even gonna get past go with this game.
Yeah.
And yeah,
There's only so many hard. Sorry, there's only so many hard crashes into an internal monologue, and you see the eyes I can
Yeah.
take. It's like, oh, not another one.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's our eyes again.
Yeah, so I'm playing this game on PC, and one of the big things that they were touting about this game was the ray tracing. Some games have used ray tracing in the past, and there hasn't been like this big, like, oh my god, this is what ray tracing is. And I'm going to say that this game really isn't that either. But it is pretty cool to see some of these kinds of things that later on in like next console generation, and when PCs can handle it a little bit better, to see some of these things that we're going to have, like real-time reflections is probably the number one thing that you can point to in this game on PC that is kind of striking. And games have done reflections before, but these are actual. The way that it handles them is like your character will literally be reflected full detail in window panes and like puddles on the floor, and so will like light sources. So like you'll see a light up in the ceiling and it'll be reflected in a puddle on the floor with all of the detail around it. So like pipes running through the wall and stuff like that. And it's more than just like you walk into a bathroom and they spent some time rendering the mirror so you can see your reflection. This is just all over the place. It's kind of like an FBI office. So there are these there's when you first start out, you're in this office environment, so there are window panes everywhere. And you'll there have been times where I've accidentally shot my own reflection because I thought it was an enemy, like coming at me. Because you turn around a corner and you see this movement in this window pane that's like all the way down at the other end of the hallway, and you're like, "What the hell was that?" And then you turn and it's like, "Oh, it's me." Yeah, and so like you'll see your reflection, and then you'll also see the room on the other side of it, and that'll be all lit with detail and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean that's like I said, the biggest thing that I'm taking away from the ray tracing. There's a lot to do with like the effects of when you're in combat and the telekinesis powers, like all of these like heat haze effects that make the game the combat in the game look pretty cool. And like you said, like the bathing everything in red, that looks really cool when it's like, instead of just an effect, it's actually like a red light like bouncing off of things and reflecting properly. And it's also a performance hog.
Yeah.
It is quite the performance hog on PC. Like I've got a 2080, which is not the best, but it's pretty damn close to the best single graphics card you can get right now. And like I either have to turn off some of the ray tracing stuff and only have a couple of the things turned on, or I have to use it's like this, they call it NVIDIA DSS or DLSS or something like that. And it actually runs the game at a lower resolution and then scales it up in order to maintain some of the performance. So that's, like I said, the ray tracing isn't quite there yet, but seeing this and seeing the reflections gets me excited to see what game developers can do when it's kind of like a standard feature, where every every platform will be able to take advantage of it, because I can't really make any like real gameplay implications with it yet, because the consoles don't have it at all. On PC, you probably don't have it because you don't have one of these graphics cards. But when it is something that can be done, I can see like how cool it would be to have something like this in like a horror game, right? Where you're walking around and all of a sudden you see a reflection in the behind you or something like that, and the way it can be used in that, or even like a puzzle game, like doing perspectives in a puzzle game or something like that could be really cool, because all this stuff is like rendered real time, so you don't have to it just makes it easier for the developer to incorporate some of these cool effects. So
see that what you just said there, where with the red light, where it reflects off the stuff, and you can actually see it being a light bouncing off of that. I play the X version, the Xbox One X version, and it's just a wash of color.
Yeah.
Which I guess is the disconnect you don't have that I do, where it's just like a massive filter, and I don't get any of that texture that you're getting.
I mean, it's like it's like a source of light as opposed to just like a filter on it. So like different things will reflect it differently. So like the shiny floor will reflect it a little bit differently, and the more opposite of glossy, matte walls will just absorb it, so it won't reflect it there and stuff like that. Those are the kinds of things
tangibility.
Those are the kinds of things that ray tracing, at least right now, are capable of doing without getting too complex with gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. Because, like I said, they can't really make a game based around it yet, because it's just not available on all the platforms.
No.
But I'm really enjoying it, and I hope. What I'll say, Leigh, based on what some of these things are not going to get better, like those inner monologues with Jesse aren't going to get better. When you go into the new environments, you're still going to get that, that big text on the screen and stuff. Yeah. But I will say that the environments do start to get mixed up once you. So you're. I think I know where you're going. You're going to be going to the research, and once you get through the research department, after that, the environments open up a little bit, and you start seeing new, interesting environments. Basically, it's not just going to be the concrete walls of the research facility. It's going to be, I'm not going to go into it, but it you start to see some cool stuff. So if you can get past that, there's like a cool, you may have seen it a little bit. There's like this mold that's kind of creeping out through the facility.
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah, there's a whole mission about that, and you'll get that's like they just keep adding on to all the stuff that's going on, and I really hope that they pull it off and pull it all together in the end and make it a satisfying payoff, because the way that they're setting all this up, and the way that they keep they're doing it in a way that is so confident that I can't imagine that they don't pull it together in the end, because otherwise
wrap it up.
Yeah, otherwise it would be like, it would kind of defeat the purpose of everything that they're doing. If you
I'll try and dip back in.
Yeah, if you can give it a little bit more time, and then if you get to those parts and you still aren't going for it, then it's just not your thing, and that's fine.
I've just looked up that they're doing 2 more expansions for it. Content expansions for it, story expansions. Yeah, called Foundation and AWE, set after the main game.
Oh, wow, okay. I was kind of wondering if they were going to do, like, so you have all these objects of power that they find in the world, and you find these documents about, like, there's this hotel room in Utah that if you stay there, you end up in a different dimension or something like that. I was kind of hoping that they were going to do like a set of DLCs where you're actually the field researchers going out on these things and having to investigate them. I thought that would be kind of cool. I mean, they could probably do a whole new game about that where they like you're just an FBC field researcher and you have to investigate some of these weird objects of power.
Yeah, generally that's basically what it is, but to quote, according to narrative designer Brooke Maggs, as the team's focus was on addressing performance issues, they're going to hold off on doing that, so you won't see it for a while yet, but they're definitely planning at least 2 more narrative ones,
Cool.
and some more non-narrative DLC, so it's going to be a continual game.
Nice.
So,
yeah, word of mouth seems to be pretty good on it, except for those performance issues. I guess on the base consoles it's real bad. Those.
I saw Digital Foundry. It goes down to about 10 FPS.
Yeah, that's crazy. I hope they can get that fixed because that's kind of inexcusable. I mean, I know they're old consoles and stuff, and the game's definitely pushing boundaries with graphically and stuff, but they need to do a better job there and at least make it playable.
Yeah.
10 frames per second is not playable at all.
No.
Yeah, so I'll look forward to more content. I still got to get through it. I was telling you in chat, I got to laser focus on it because I need to finish this game. I can't get distracted by other stuff, so that's what I got to do. Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of Voxel Viewpoint. If you'd like to hear or see more, please consider subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing to us on YouTube, or visiting voxelvoice.com, where all of our great content comes together in one place. Also check out the Voxel Voice Facebook group, where you can join in on the discussion with a great, like-minded community.